The chime of the bell beckons us into a sacred time. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, a congregation that welcomes you no matter what you look like or who you love, and no matter how you practice spirituality, because we know we need not think alike to love alike. We extend a heartfelt and inclusive invitation to join us in meaningful worship and in service to the world. We greet all those who join us this morning, those in our sanctuary, all of our online viewers, así como el creciente número de participantes bilingües que nos acompañan desde sus hogares. Now, please look in your order of service for an insert with the words to our opening hymn, Answering the Call of Love. I invite you to rise in body and in spirit and join in the choir singing our hymn.
We are answering the call of love. Let the words of our opening hymn inspire us to recall the mission of our faith, to build a more loving world where the worth and dignity of each and every human being is celebrated. Youth, elder, migrant, citizen, Black, white, Asian, multiracial, indigenous, transgender, male, female, gay, straight, or somewhere in between. Each has a place in the great family of all souls. We are answering the call of love. We do so in community, so come, friends, let us worship together.
Please join with me in saying the words to our new congregational covenant, which can be found on the back of your printed order of service. Love is the spirit of this congregation. Service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to encourage one another. Thus do we covenant.
Hi, I'm Peggy Harvey, one of this year's co-chairs for the Stewardship Campaign. Our theme this year is widening the circle of love. FIRSTUU Church has a solid foundation on which to build this endeavor. We were the first safe place in Houston for LGBT teens to talk about their sexuality. We've been active in support of immigrants, the struggle against racism, voter registration, and women's health issues. We helped to found the Houston Zen Center. We were in the forefront of the desegregation of churches in the Houston area, and we're host to one of Houston's longest-running women's groups. On a personal note, FIRSTUU has supported and educated me as I've grown into a more involved person working for change. I've taken part in some of the many social justice activities offered here. I was welcomed decades ago as a single parent who wanted to bring her children up in a warm, loving environment that was socially and politically active. I hope you'll join us in renewing your commitment to this beloved community, which is essential to us, to Houston, and beyond. Please help us widen the circle of love. Thank you.
Listen to
So now is the time when we send our young folks off to religious exploration. And I think they're going to be doing something related to the garden, although with the rain, maybe not. Anyways, whatever their activities end up being, weather altered, we want them to know that we love you, young people, and we're so glad that you're part of the future of our faith community. So thank you, and have fun. Enter with me into the space that some call prayer and others name meditation. Open yourself to the wonders and mystery of the world. Open yourself to compassion and empathy. Take one breath. Take another. Find your center. Spirit of life, known by many names and beyond all naming, we ask that you be with us this morning, this first Sunday of spring, this first week of Ramadan. Drawing inspiration from many religious traditions, we uplift this time of going deeper and seeking spiritual reward through practices of fasting, charity, recitation, and communal celebration. We ask that in this month and throughout this spring, through all the ways that people name spirit in this world, whether they name spirit as the Abrahamic God, the Orishas, the highest in humanity, or call it by other words, that it be present with us and help us go deeper and find in ourselves greater generosity and a stronger sense of community. That it might be so, I invite the congregation to say Amen. We've paused now to lift up that which sits heavy and light on our hearts. We lift up Norma Acker, who is now home recovering from rehab and asks for our continual thoughts and blessings. We hold in our hearts friends of the congregation, Omawale Luthuli. He shares that his twin grandchildren were born prematurely last week and requests prayers for them, his daughter, and her husband, but reports that the infants are currently thriving without external support. And we celebrate with Chelsea D'Souza, who successfully had her doctoral recital last Thursday. And is now one step closer towards completing her degree. We now turn to a practice inspired by African, indigenous, and neo-pagan traditions. We say aloud or bring to mind those we wish to have held in the loving embrace of this community. We hear these names and lift them into the great cloud of witness and memory that exists among this beloved community. We also extend all of our empathy now to the joy and suffering that has not been named but remains around us. We pause now in awe, wonder at the mystery and beauty that is life. and enter into a time of silent meditation, reflection, or prayer in the spirit of hope, compassion, and joy.
Each week, our morning offering is shared with an organization that shares our Unitarian Universalist values and through which we may live out our principles in the world. Today, through our shared offering to the SHAPE Community Center, we are helping to improve the quality of life for our neighbors of African descent through programs and activities. The mission of the center is to improve the quality of life for people of African descent, as well as all people, through programs and activities with emphasis on unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. Those in our sanctuary will find the instructions for text giving in your order of service, and those watching the live stream will see the instructions on your screen. Our regular Sunday morning offering collection invites us to weave a tapestry of love and action. We ask you to give generously. An offering will now be gratefully received.
Please join with me to read the words for dedicating our offering found in your laminated pew card. To the work of this church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are our offerings.
Our first reading this morning is from Growing Our Souls by Paula Cole-Jones. The prophetic church has many roles. It does the difficult work of truth and reconciliation and sets a new course that calls people to a higher level of discourse and humanity. It casts a vision that illuminates the way like a beam of light and calls us to walk with fellow travelers and together build a new reality. The prophetic church equips us for the journey, fortifies our courage, stokes our passion, rekindles our flame, and supports the community in the process. It reinvents itself and a piece of the world by bringing into being justice and compassion. Public opinion and future generations will recognize it as prophetic.
Our second reading is Love Beyond God by Adam Lawrence Dyer. What if every time you woke up, your sigh was felt by every being on earth? What if every time you spoke, your words were heard by every ear on earth? What if when you told a joke, you tickled the senses of every smile on earth? What if each tender stroke you shared your touch with every hand on earth? What if when your heart broke, you tasted the tears running down every cheek on earth? No bond or brand of gilded yoke. Surely this is love that reaches beyond, that holds one to another and every other to one, no matter the color or where they're from. This is now. This is we. This is love. This is God. This is love beyond God. Here ends the second reading.
I invite you to open your gray hymnals to number 2020. Please rise in body or in spirit and join together as we sing. Be thou my vision, O God of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, my day or my
Last Sunday, the children in our religious education program got to harvest some of the vegetables in our garden plot out front. You've probably seen it. It's on Fannin Street, right as you come in the main entrance to the campus. This time of year, it is full of good things to eat. The kids got to take home kale and mustard greens and carrots and beets. There's still some edible stuff in the garden too. Even though bolted cilantro does not quite taste the best, I have to admit that I've been admiring it. There's something about the way the herbs spider together that's particularly appealing. And I have to talk about the smash of color. There are black-eyed Susans with lovely yellow. And of course, we have to mention the bluebonnets. Texas's beloved flowers have escaped the bounds of the garden, jumped the sidewalk, and made their way to the other side of the concrete. And today, I think, weather permitting, the kids are at it again. They're in the first phase of transitioning the garden from winter to spring. And they're going to plant cosmos flowers, which will add some nice pink, and zinnias, that'll be a bit of red. And there'll be green beans too, which I suspect may have me sneaking out front in a couple of months on my lunch breaks to munch on just a few of them. Our congregation is not unique, of course. Churches and other religious communities have had gardens for a long time. Indeed, gardens have been connected with religion for perhaps as long as there has been organized religion. Let us begin with the garden, an image of paradise. Unitarian Universalist theologian Rebecca Parker joins us. And for more than 125 years, here in Houston, our religious ancestors did just that. It is, as I shared with you in a recent sermon, the first recorded Universalist sermon here in this city asked, "What are we to live for but to make this world a paradise, a pleasant, happy place for all to live in?" Paradise has often been likened to a garden. The earliest Christian communities found in it this world, permeated and blessed by the Spirit of God. As Rebecca Parker, writing with her friend Rita Nakashima Brock, put it in another text. Permeated and blessed by the Spirit seems to me to be a good way to describe many gardens. Certainly, our garden out front and our courtyard garden are both blessed by the Spirit of this community. In each of them, there's something of the presence, the care, the dedication of both those now living and those who have gone before. Gardening seems like a good metaphor in which to root our annual stewardship sermon. Like stewardship, it is an act of love. Like stewardship, it is an intergenerational activity. And like stewardship, it is a way that we widen love's circle. Stewardship is an opportunity to reflect on what it means to be a member of a Unitarian Universalist community like this one. And gardening is an essential way to connect with what it means to be human, to be a creature dependent on, part of, and charged with tending to this muddy blue-green ball of a planet that is home to all known being. Gardening, stewardship, each a religious activity in the ancient sense of the word, from the Latin religio, to bind together. For us Unitarian Universalists, stewardship is about building and sustaining the prophetic religious community. Paula Cole-Jones describes for us some of the dimensions of such a community. She tells us that it casts a vision that illuminates the way and equips us for the journey, fortifies our courage, and strokes our passion and rekindles our flame. I like to quote John Wolfe, the longtime member of All Souls in Tulsa, minister of All Souls in Tulsa, about stewardship. Now retired and advocate of prophetic religious community, he built the largest Unitarian Universalist congregation in the world. He wrote, "There is only one reason for joining a Unitarian Universalist congregation. That is to support it with your time and money. You want to support it because it stands against superstition and fear, because it points to the noblest and best in human life, because it is open to people of whatever race, creed, color, place of origin, gender, or sexual orientation." His words are several decades old. They were true back when they were composed, and they remain true today. Though in this dire hour, when the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is telling us we must act now before it is too late, I would also add that our tradition is calling us to heal our interdependent relationship with the earth. And so this morning it seems particularly pertinent to choose gardening as a metaphor for stewardship. I like gardening because, well, like stewardship, it's something that almost everyone enjoys. I have yet to meet the person who, even if they didn't like getting their hands dirty and their pants muddy, does not appreciate either a beautiful garden or the bounty of fresh vegetables and the glory of cultivated flowers. And to be human is to enjoy, and here I mean enjoy in the sense of benefit from stewardship. If you are alive, and I hope that most of you are, you would do well to remember that each of us is a gift from the ancestors who brought us into being, and that each of us is enjoying their gifts all the time. The gifts of the culture that they've crafted, the gifts of the buildings that they've built, and yes, the gifts of religious communities that they have sustained. I will admit also that it is just possible that I am eager to use gardening as a metaphor for stewardship at the moment because I'm a bit garden mad. You see, a few weeks ago, I got access to a community garden plot for the first time in a few years. And so I've been doing all of the things, consulting with family members about what to plant, asking my mom for her experience, thinking about the best strategies for organically keeping out bugs and keeping down the weeds, worrying about the tomato seedlings, watching the corn start to sprout, getting excited about radish shoots, and even beginning to wonder if we might be able to turn the whole venture into one of these no-till exercises and make use with the seemingly infinite mounds of compost that we seem to produce in our house. Like I said, a bit garden mad. So let's dig deeper into gardening as a metaphor for stewardship and consider how both are about widening love's circle. Now, I am not by any stretch a master gardener. I do know enough about gardening to know that there are certain steps in the process, though. The first thing, of course, you need to do is figure out what kind of garden you intend to have. I decided on a vegetable garden. Flowers are nice, but there is just something about fresh garden vegetables that cannot be beat. I mean, tomatoes right off the vine, or some arugula that's just recently been picked, or the possibility of making a big batch of pesto. Come on. When forming a religious community, people also have to settle in on its purpose. And I've been arguing the last few months that the vision we voted for a few weeks back reflects nothing more than the aim for which First Unitarian Universalist has long been organized, to widen love's circle. We find that intention in Quillen Shin's words from the earliest of our sermons, to create a happy place for all. Once you've settled on the intention of your garden, you have to select a place. Now, I was lucky that there were a few plots to choose from in the garden, so I got to pick one where there's lots of sun and that it's situated nicely near to a water spout. It's also close to a communal tool shed, so there doesn't have to be that much back and forth as I work to cultivate it. The same thing is true with congregational life. We have to select a site where we think our vision will best flourish. And here we have committed, in the words of our mission, to the city's diverse urban center. We've decided that we can best steward our vision of widening Love's Circle by making a place for Unitarian Universalists and Unitarian Universalism here in the heart of Houston. After we have a site, we have to make a plan. You can see the wonderful intentional plan that's been made by the religious education program out front in the garden there. They've been very thoughtful about what gets planted where and when. Some of the time, they even are so kind as to place labels in front of what they're growing, if you're curious. If you have a garden, how have you approached planting it? In my case, I tried to draw out a grid for my plot, and then with the benefit of my mother's and others' insights, go through where the tomatoes would be planted, the successive planting for the salad greens, locations for some herbs and other seed starts, and then the marigolds, and where are we going to put the peppers when they finally come in. Gardens do a lot better when there's a sense of intentionality behind them. If you crowd the plants that are not going to do so well, space, after all, is limited. Some things grow more quickly than others. Right now, there are radishes where in a month the tomato vines will be exploding. Religious communities also do better with a plan. We only have so much time, so much focus. One of the reasons why First Unitarian Universalist has done so well over the last few years is we've been intentional in sticking to our developmental goals. Rather than trying to do everything all at once, we made a decision to tend to the issues that were most vital for our religious community's future. Developing a clearer sense of mission, improving governance, making a commitment to anti-racism and to membership growth. To be good stewards of our institution, like being good gardeners, is partially about knowing how much we can accomplish when and where. When it is time to focus on this act of congregational life and when it is time to center that aspect. So much of our work together over the past few years has been organizationally focused. In gardening terms, we've been spacing the tomato cages, laying out the trellises, tilling the soil. And now it's time to turn from that work to really trying to start growing again. And in the coming program year, we'll be centering spiritual practice and connection more than we've able been to in this earlier part of our developmental effort. With a plan in place, first comes the work of planting, then the slow and steady work of stewarding the garden. This is some of the work I enjoy the most. If you garden, is that true for you? Visiting my plot almost daily, I get to watch the earthly miracle of its growth. Give it some water, pull the odd weed, and the greenery steadily expands. A few minutes a day helps me to stay centered. And it's also a thing that my loved ones and I get to connect with each other about. We can talk about the gardens, tend to the seed starts, and engage in a bit of collective work together. Stewarding a garden is really a spiritual practice. It keeps us linked to the natural cycles of the planet, aware of what is happening with the climate, and conscious of the ways in which we are dependent and interdependent on the wind, the sun, the soil, and all that is. If you are a gardener or have ever benefited from a garden, and this is something we try to teach the children through our religious education program, you probably learned that the more you put into the garden, the more you get out of it. This, of course, is the stewardship kicker for the sermon. the part I've been leading to where I hope to inspire you, as longtime former minister here, Bob Scheibele, used to say, to give until it feels good. I've found out over the years that the more people give to their religious community, the more they get out of it, and the more fully the community is able to live out its vision. And here, though I am talking about the always uncomfortable subject of financial giving, I'm also discussing the sharing of time and talent. It is your gifts of all three that empower us collectively to work to widen love's circle. And the more devoted we are to stewardship, the more we can give, the more capacity we have to realize our vision. There is so much that we do for each other and for the wider community. We proclaim a message that each and every human being has inherent worth and dignity in a state governed by the politics of cruelty. In a place where the evil of the ruling political class, for it is evil to inflict suffering on others, is often targeted to women, people of color, the poor, the undocumented, and those who are queer or gender fluid. It is a region where what seems like basic decencies in other parts of the country, access to abortion, gender-neutral bathrooms, maternal health care, and so many other things are anthems to people who pretend to speak inspired by the Spirit of God. In such a place in this state of Texas, committing to steward the vision of widening love's circle is a radical and rewarding act. It is radical because it challenges us to uproot the politics of cruelty and replace them with love. It is rewarding because it calls us to each other into the work of community and challenges us for caring for each other and for all being. It reminds us of that fundamental truth of life, spoken so eloquently in our poem by Adam Lawrence Dyer. It is love that reaches beyond, that holds one to another and every other to one, no matter the color or where they're from. This is now, this is we, this is love, this is God. And this is love beyond God. Love beyond God. This morning we launch our annual stewardship campaign. We're encouraging those of you who are members to renew your pledges, and those of you who are not yet members to consider making a financial commitment to our vision of widening Love's Circle. It costs a little over $1 million a year to do all that we do. We can only do it with dedicated stewardship of so many of you. But let me not leave the sermon there. Instead, let us return to the garden. For it reminds us that when we are good and generous stewards, we find the rewards of beauty and sustenance, not just for our own generation, but for future ones. That, after all, is the lesson we hope to inspire our children through our garden out front. The lesson that there is beauty and sustenance to be found through widening Love's Circle. And it is what we hope to inspire in each other through our collective stewardship. So that it might be so, I invite the congregation to say, Amen.
Now I invite you to open up your teal hymnals to number 1028, The Fire of Commitment. Please rise in body or spirit and join as we sing. From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and souls ablaze, when
As we extinguish the chalice, please join with me in reading the words that are printed on your laminated hymnal card. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Let us leave this place inspired by the fire of commitment to be ever better stewards of what we've been given. The good earth, the sweet water, and yes, this community and the great family of all souls. Go in peace, go in love. May our lives be a blessing. Amen. Thank you so much for watching our service today. We're glad you're part of our online community, where we welcome people who are diverse in faith, ethnicity, history, as well as gender identity and sexual orientation. There are many different ways you can get involved in our community. One you can do right now is by clicking like below or subscribing to our channel. If you're interested in joining our congregation, please email us at membership@firstuuhouston.org. Thanks so much for joining us.